Today is a big day for us. Today is the day that we have the interview for my application for green card.
Hey everybody, this is Gio,
Y Juan Carlos.
and welcome to our channel for a very special video that we're bringing you today. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that Juan Carlos and I were happily married a little over a year ago on February 16th, 2020 in Savannah, Georgia. And just a short while later, we started the immigration journey for Juan Carlos. And it's been quite the journey. So, if you're new to our channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. And the thumbs up always helps as well. We appreciate that very much. So, we're bringing you our immigration journey today. And we thought it would be important to share this information for other couples similar to us, whether you're a gay couple or even if you're not a gay couple. Hopefully our information and what our experience was over the last year will help you in your immigration journey if you are doing an adjustment of status due to marriage. Mm-hmm. So what else do you want to add to that?
Well, it was quite a journey.
Mm-hmm.
It took a little longer than usual because COVID.
Yes.
However, at the end, you get what you're looking for. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
good.
so definitely we want to give you our honest feedback today on what our experience was. And by no means are we giving you any sort of legal advice. I'm not an attorney, neither is he. We are not immigration experts by any means. We're just sharing our own personal experience dealing with USCIS and the process that we went through. Mm-hmm. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to take you step by step of our journey from the point of getting married to where we first filed our paperwork and the decision process we made, and then what are the steps that you would also need to take if you're doing an adjustment of status based on marriage.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the different documentation and forms that we had to fill. Mm-hmm. The documentation for each one of those forms, and our process with the lawyer, how we work with him, especially during this time, mm-hmm. and the overall experience.
Yes. And sticking with the mantra of our channel, we're going to try to keep this upbeat and light somewhat because happiness is
a lifestyle.
And in the end, definitely it's a happy ending as it relates to immigration. So hopefully, again, our video will help you in your process. Step one in the immigration process, if you are doing an adjustment of status based on marriage, the first thing you need to do is make a decision. Are you going to do this on your own, or are you going to hire an attorney? Mm-hmm. And for us, we had a lot of discussion about it. We had some friends that had gone through the experience and they had done it without an attorney, and we had other friends who had done it with an attorney. So we did some research and we found a local attorney here in our area. We had a consultation with that attorney initially to get a feel for it, to share our experience in our particular immigration story with an attorney. Mm-hmm. And then we had some time to think about it after our wedding and before we filed our paperwork. And ultimately, we decided to hire an attorney to help us. And there's two reasons for that. One is we, unfortunately, were in a period of time in this country where COVID was happening and USCIS offices were closed all over the country, which made it much more challenging, and we were concerned that we wanted to make sure we did everything 100% right because things were different. It wasn't the normal situation. And number two, we're a gay couple. And we had some concerns about what is immigration like for gay couples because it's still relatively new here in the United States. Mm-hmm. Are there any concerns that we needed to look out for, or any extra steps we needed to take being a gay couple? And so the immigration attorney that we hired was an expert in that field and happened to be gay himself. So that was a big help. Anything else you want to add about
the attorney? I can say that most of the questions and the forms that you have to fill are not so difficult, mm-hmm. but at the same time, we wanted to have like that extra help in case we had any questions regarding any of the questions that were on the form. And actually, we had to ask him a couple questions about some of the the things that you have to fill out because there were not like clear, like very clear.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions on your immigration forms that, while you can do research and all of that, they're not 100% clear on what they're looking for or how they're asking the question. And it's nice to have that expertise. And so again, for us. Now, again, if you hire an attorney, we're not going to lie to you. It is expensive. However, in the end, I think we're happy that we did that.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
you were.
Again, that's your own personal decision. We chose to, but if you want to, we highly suggest you do your research, though. There are lots and lots of attorneys all over the country. Find one that suits your needs. And don't be afraid to ask for a consultation, and you do not have to always pay for a consultation. So that's important to know as well.
Yeah.
So once we hired our attorney, we then had to start the process of adjustment of status. And for Juan Carlos, he was required to file what's called I-485, which is the application to register permanent residence or adjust status. And basically what that means is, for Juan Carlos, he traveled originally to the United States. He had a visa that allowed him to come and go from Costa Rica. So he came to the United States on that visa. We then got married, and now we're applying for an adjustment of status to that particular visa. And for him, because we're married, permanent residence. So that required the I-485 application. In addition to that, I, as the petitioner or the spouse, I had to file the I-130 petition for alien relative document. So those were our first steps. We had to file the I-485 and the I-130. And we filled those out. We did all of that electronically back and forth between us and our attorney, and asked whatever questions we had. And again, we didn't have to meet with the attorney in person. We were able to do all of this digitally. We filled out all of our forms. We set up a Google Drive at home so that we could share documents with our attorney. Because we were in COVID, so there wasn't a lot of meeting in person.
Exactly.
And then we sent those forms to our attorney, who then reviewed them and in turn sent them off to USCIS on behalf of us.
Yeah, all of those forms are available online, so you can just download the forms. You can either fill print the forms and fill them like manually, or you can do it on the computer and then print the forms. And all of that, you can find it on uscis.gov.
Yes.
That's where you find all that documentation.
And every single document has very detailed instructions on the uscis.gov website. And the information there is great. So
yeah, and
just
then
follow it to the T.
And then you have to, you don't have to, but you can create an account on uscis.gov, and that way you can attach the documents to your profile, and you can follow like what's happening with the document,
Right.
what's happening with the petition, with the forms.
Yes. So it's nice to have that online process so that when they do send out a notification, or if they send out a request for more information, etc., you will get notified both by mail as well as digitally online. So with our I-485 application for permanent residence, just to let you know, at the time of our filing, which was in April of 2020, we had to pay the application petition fee, which cost us $1,140, the biometrics fee, which cost $85. So we had to pay to the U.S. government, USCIS, a total of $1,225. That was just the initial filing fees for his biometrics and for the petition.
So in addition to the I-485 and I-130, we had to also apply for the I-765, which is the application for employment authorization, and another one that is called I-131, application for travel document.
Right. And that's for his advanced parole.
Exactly.
And so in consultation with our attorney, obviously with somebody immigrating to this country, you want to be able to file your petition so that you can have the ability to work. So that is why we filed the I-765, which is the employment authorization. Because Juan Carlos still owns property in Costa Rica and has family in Costa Rica, and we didn't know, what the time frame would be in being able to travel outside the United States. Typically, while you're awaiting your adjustment of status, If you do not file for a travel document, you are not, as the immigrant, allowed to leave the United States until you actually get your permanent residence or your green card.
Yeah. Well, technically, yes, you can leave the country, but the problem is when you come back, they might deny you the entrance.
Correct, yeah. So
So-
there's a huge risk in doing that. So in addition, again, at the advice of our attorney, we applied for him for the
I-131.
I-131, which is the travel and the advanced parole.
And at the end of that process, what they do is they combine the two petitions, and then you get one card that is called the Advanced Parole, and it combines the travel document, the travel authorization document, and the job permission.
Yes. So on our initial filing, just to reiterate, we did the I-485, the I-130, the I-765, and the I-131. All of those documents were filed at the same time. We gave all of that information to our attorney. We filled out all of those forms, and again, he sent them out. The good news is we filed everything. That all happened, and so again, we did that in April. And do we have the timeline here, our case history? We're actually using the app to pull back up our timeline of everything.
So the first action on the I-485 was on April 17, 2020, saying that we received your form, application to register permanent residence or adjusted status.
So that's the first notice that we received. We got a notice that they received it, and then they on April 21st. They accepted the fingerprint fee, which was the biometrics. So they accepted the fee. In addition, when we filed that paperwork, one thing we forgot to mention is both of us had to go get passport photos taken. And we had to submit passport photos with the application. So that's important to note as well. That is a requirement. Yep.
Yeah, also
And-
there was a financial...
Yeah, so if you're doing a status change based on your marriage, in addition, when we filed our initial paperwork, we filed we sent in our money, the check that was sent to the government, and basically, we also needed to send in passport photos, one for him, one for myself, all of the forms. We had to send in my U.S. passport card or a copy of my U.S. passport for myself. We had to send in a birth certificate for him, and if the petitioner is from another country where the birth certificate is not in the English language, that birth certificate has to be not only translated, but certified translated. So that was another thing that we had to do through Costa Rica, is get his birth certificate translated and certified. We had to do the I-94 and passport for him, and the I-94 is the complete travel record of all the entry and exits of his passport in and out of the United States for the past 3 years. And you can actually get that information online from the U.S. government. There's a history of that.
Yeah, that's easy to
And we had to make a copy of all of the stamps in his passport, and all of those had to be submitted. In addition to that, I had to present what's called an I-864, which is a form that shows the government that I am financially stable as the petitioner to be able to support Juan Carlos in the event that immigration process takes too long and he's not working. So I had to file my previous 3 years of tax transcripts along with a copy of my U.S. passport for those documents. In addition to that, we had to provide documentation of our bona fide marriage, which is the marriage certificate and the marriage license.
the affidavits.
And we also got affidavits from family members and friends that have known us through our relationship. All of those had to be notarized. We just reached out to family and friends and asked if they would write a letter on our behalf telling the U.S. government that they know us, they know our relationship is a legitimate relationship, how they know us, how long, etc. So a lot of those were family members and friends and people that attended our wedding. In addition to that, we also supplied a whole timeline of photos of our relationship from the time we met all the way up to the point of our marriage. We submitted all of that, and all of that is a requirement. As you can see, it's a lot of documents here, including all of the photos. This is the initial filing that our attorney gave us a copy of. So it's a lot of paperwork. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience.
And a lot of organization. Something that I do suggest is you can either do it, again, physical or digital. And then if you do it, this digital, what I did and what I found usual for our case at least, is I created a share folder on Google Drive, which is free, and I created a separate folder for each form. And inside each folder, let's say folder I-485, I created another subfolder called all versions, and one that it was documentation, and in the folder itself, I had the I-485 PDF with all the checks and all the information that I had filled before. Why the old versions? Because sometimes you have to change things from from one file to the other, and I just wanted to keep track of every single version that I had filled of that specific form. And the documentation one, it's attaching things like, I don't know, photos, copy of your birth certificate, copy of your marriage license, stuff like that, that it's supporting that specific document. That way you have everything organized, like in a folder like this as well, physical. You create a folder for that specific form, and you start piling up things that support that form.
Yeah.
That's how we did it. That way it was easier for us to communicate with the lawyer. Hey, we just put this document that you requested under this folder that is supporting this form.
Yeah, and we would just send an email with a link to the attorney, and he was able to pull whatever, or if he needed to share something, we gave him a folder where he could send us back and put a document. Yeah. It was super easy, but that's the key.
Completely remote, completely touchless,
yeah,
everything digital, easy, fast.
So that's another huge advice. So patience is one advice, and the second one is be organized and cross your I's and dot your T's. No, I mean dot your I's and cross your T's. I told you it would be funny. So anyway, so then we filed all of our paperwork, and then we got the request for additional documentation. When we initially received that, it was sort of like, oh, because we thought we did everything right. So then we filed that, and then it's another waiting game. And so we had received that, as we said, in May, request for additional evidence. Then again, on May 27th, we got a notice saying that they received it. And it wasn't again until August that we got a notification that he was being sent and requested to go get his fingerprints done, the biometric. So that was a little milestone. We were excited. We were like, okay, yay, things are moving forward.
Something is happening, because imagine from May to August,
we heard nothing.
Yeah. And there's no one that you can call. There's no one that you can say, hey, do you know what's happening here, or go somewhere? Nothing. It was like a,
right.
So
it was it's a little challenging in that waiting period. So we got the notification for the biometrics, which was great. And then on August 28th, we received a notice telling us that they were ready to schedule the Form I-485 application to register permanent residence. So we were like, okay, great. So they've got the 485. They're ready to move forward with it. They got the biometrics. And now from August all the way until January of this year, we didn't hear anything. Except for one additional time where they had Juan Carlos go twice to get his biometrics.
Yeah.
Once was for the 485, and the second time was for the Advanced Parole travel document. Mm-hmm. So they actually made him go get his fingerprints done twice.
Which is like,
we were wondering.
It's a little weird, because it's the same person, just a different form. They should be able to just copy from here to here, but they didn't do it.
Right.
I had to go twice. Whatever.
So again, one of our observations is that, depending on the form, not the same, even though it's all in the same system and you're assigned the same number in the U.S. government, that there's a lot of duplication of effort, I guess.
Oh yes, a lot of duplication of effort and information. Like you have to put your, let's say, your name in every single form. Yes. Several times in the same form.
They ask for the same thing over and over and over and
your
over.
Address, age, country of origin, stuff like that. You have to repeat in every single form several times. Yeah. So it's one of those things that, again, you think like, why don't they have like everything tied together? Mm-hmm. But it is what it is. You just have to follow up.
Yeah, you have no choice. So again, remember, so now we've gotten everything in. We got a notice in August, and we were kind of excited. We're like, oh great, things are moving relatively quickly. From April to August is not that long. And then we waited and we waited and we waited and we waited, and it wasn't until the beginning of 2021 that we received notification that his
Interview.
no, not the interview first that your employment authorization and your advanced parole was approved. And so that was exciting. It was like, oh great, so we got the advanced parole and the and then they gave him what's called the combo card, which is the employment authorization and ability to travel. We received that 1 week, and then within a week of getting that, we received notice that they were ready to schedule our interview for an in-person interview, which is the final step before you get your adjustment of status for permanent residence. So we were super excited that we got that in January. We were notified that that was the next step, and then we received notice that in February, right? Isn't that when we got?
March 27th, your interview.
No, that's when so January is when it was scheduled. At the beginning of February is when we actually physically received the notice, and our interview was scheduled for March 17th of this year. And then we went and we had our interview, which we're going to tell you about, and then there was a period of about a month after our interview where literally March 17th, and then April 15th is when April 16th, we were notified that our case was approved and his permanent residence card was ordered.
Yeah.
So from start to finish for us, it was just roughly a little over 1 year from the point of getting married and filing all of our paperwork. And this was also during the pandemic and during COVID. So it was definitely a challenging period of time. But in the big scheme of things, we've heard other stories and other cases that have taken much longer than ours. And of course, we've heard some that have taken much quicker, where they filed and within just a few months, they've been approved. So you never know. Our case is different. Your case will be different as well. However, going back to the fact that we are a gay couple, during the process and all of the people we had to communicate with, I never felt like there was anybody judging us based on the fact that we were a gay couple.
No.
So for that, I'm grateful. I'm very grateful in that. From the point of actually applying for our marriage certificate in Georgia, and the ladies that were working there, and shout out to them if they ever watch this video, in Savannah, Georgia at the county clerk's office, they were amazing. They were so sweet and helpful and excited for us about us getting married. And even our interviewer was polite to us as it related to us being a gay couple. So
just a few days ago, we received the actual card.
Hooray!
Yay! It was pretty exciting. And something important to mention is that all the notifications came to our mail here at home, but the actual card, the advanced parole, the combo card, the advanced parole in work authorization, and the permanent resident, also known as green card, our lawyer received those.
And that's because our attorney filed all the paperwork on our behalf, and there's a box on there where the attorney can ask to receive the important documents like the actual physical cards. And upon attorney recommendation, we agreed for him to receive it on our behalf, because those are certified mail, and you don't want to mess with that. What if we're not at home and they try to deliver it, etc.? And we actually had friends of ours in California that went through a situation like that, where theirs got lost in the mail, and it took them an extra couple months of trying to communicate with USCIS to get a replacement card.
And you don't want that.
We didn't want that. So, yeah, all of that. In addition, one other thing to point out in this process that we didn't mention, on the forms, there's a box on the petition form that says, asking you if you want USCIS for your employment authorization, to also send the notification of approval to the Social Security Administration and automatically generate a Social Security number for the petitioner. We checked that box. So when he received his work authorization card in January, we assumed that shortly thereafter, and we had asked our attorney about it, he was like, yeah, probably within 2 weeks you'll receive your Social Security card in the mail. So we kept waiting and we kept waiting and we kept waiting and we kept waiting. And then finally I reached back out to the attorney and I said, hey, we still haven't received a Social Security number for him. And the attorney recommended that we go ahead and call the Social Security Administration, which I did. And again, during these strange times that we live in, that was a challenge getting through to the Social Security Administration, but you had to be persistent. And we got through. Juan Carlos spoke to the agent, and USCIS never filed on behalf, even though we had checked the box. So we had to schedule an appointment, and it had to be an in-person appointment. And again, because of COVID, there was limited appointments available, but we had to go in person to the Social Security office with his work authorization card and provide more documentation to Social Security. And we were informed by the agent working at the Social Security office that he doesn't understand why USCIS puts that check mark on the box, because in his experience, he's dealing with giving new Social Security numbers to many people who had the same exact situation happen as us. So we share that with you because don't trust or don't rely that USCIS is going to automatically generate your Social Security card because you checked that box, because in our case it didn't happen, and apparently according to the gentleman at the Social Security office, that's not always the case.
So you better, if it within a week you have not received the Social Security card, it's better if you check.
Yeah.
Call the number or go to the office, try to get an appointment or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now we're going to take you on our final step in the process, which was our interview in person at USCIS. And for many people, including us, that's like the build-up through the immigration process. And it's the moment where it's your final step, but you're also nervous about it. So let's take a moment and reflect a little bit prior to getting to where we are today and go and post interview. So prior to going to the interview, filing the paperwork, getting a request for additional information, waiting and waiting and waiting. Did we mention waiting? So yeah, I share that because the one thing that we found most challenging about going through the immigration process is that it is a very impersonal, a very technical process of filling out a ton of paperwork in duplicate, in triplicate, in quadruplet, a lot of that information. And the process puts you a little bit on what you feel as like a little bit of the defensive. Like you are now, and we have to, and I get it, for immigration purposes, to 100% prove that our relationship is legitimate and it is real. And I do not begrudge the U.S. government for making sure and vetting every person that is applying for a status change based on marriage or any other reason to ensure that the relationship, etc., is legal. However, on the flip side of it, as somebody who's now gone through it, and as a U.S. citizen, I had different preconceived notions about what immigration would be like. I had feelings like, oh, I'm marrying the person that I love, we're getting married, we're going to file some paperwork, the government's going to embrace us, we're going to get through this, and it's going to be a great experience, and at the end we're going to be celebrating. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. There's a lot of angst that goes through this process. There's a lot of feeling discouraged because you don't have answers and you're waiting and wondering. And there's this always in the back of your mind. Is there something wrong? Are they going to deny? Even though we know 100% that everything's legitimate, you don't know what's going on the other side. So in that sense, we're not going to lie and say that it's not without some stress and anxiety, because I think you need to be aware of that and prepared for that, and then just realize, like we did, take a deep breath, keep moving forward, and then keep relying on the fact that you know you've done the right thing. Exactly. You know that you're legitimate, and all we can do is present the evidence that we have, and in the end, things will work out.
Yeah, if your relationship is, it's real and it's something that comes from the heart, and everything that you have, it's real and supports your relationship, then just present it. I mean, if it's real, then it's true. Yeah. Then it's going to go out, just fine.
And it doesn't matter whether you're gay, straight, or other. It's going to it's going to work out in the end, as long as you are 100% legit. So from that perspective, he and I both, and we've had lots of talks about this, we believe 100% in the legal immigration process of the United States of America and any other country for that matter. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. The only thing is that you feel like you have to justify everything, you have to justify your love,
Right.
which is a little.
It's weird.
I don't know. It's weird. I understand that it's the right thing to do. This country needs to protect who are they given, the access and right to be here. But it's a little weird that you have to justify everything on your relation. But
Yeah.
it's you gotta do what you gotta do. Right?
Yep. Just like Madonna said, justify my love. So once we received the notice that the interview had been scheduled, one additional thing that we then had to do is schedule his medical exam. And everybody is required, USCIS requires you to get a medical done. Now, some people will go ahead and get their medical done at the time that they apply all of their paperwork. Our attorney advised us to wait, and the reason for that is you never know how long it's going to take USCIS to process your paperwork. And if your medical is, I'm not sure how long, so
Maybe 6 months.
maybe 6 months. If it's older than 6 months, and again, that may not, I'll put a note on the screen if we're wrong, I'll look it up. But if it is older than 6 months or other, you'll have to get it done again. So there's no sense doing it and then having to do it again. Because you have to spend money to do it. You have to go to a certified doctor that's been approved by USCIS, and what they need is for him, for example, why don't you tell them what you had to get?
Yeah, I had to get my vaccine record from Costa Rica, and which in our case is a card with all the vaccines that I had received before, with the dates, and I presented that to the lab, and they pretty much filled it out, their form, and then they had to do blood tests. They actually had to take four tubes of my blood, and that's to ensure that I still have the antibodies for all those vaccines. And then I actually had to do the urine test for STDs, and then an appointment with the doctor when he's going to go through the results.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Now, we do suggest that you do that with time, because things can happen.
Yes, we scheduled the appointment with a medical facility that was approved by USCIS, and USCIS gives you a list. You can just put in your zip code or your city where you live on the USCIS website, and they'll give you a list of doctors that you can go visit. For whatever reason, the lab that we went to, he had his blood work done, his urinalysis, and we got a call a few days later saying that the specimen cup that they used at this particular lab, they sent it to another lab for analysis, and that lab no longer accepted that particular specimen cup, and they had to order more specimen cups. But because of the coronavirus, there was a back order on specimen cups, and it was going to be another week before they got that in, and he had to come back, or we could go to another lab and pay more money. And we're like, we've already paid you for this. This is not our fault.
Yeah.
So we waited the additional week. He went back into that lab again, and then for whatever reason, they sent out the specimen, and something happened to it between, and he ended up having to go back a third time, 3 times for the urine part of the test, which was very annoying. And that's not necessarily going to be your situation, but it was ours. But realize that took us what should have been just a week or less than a week.
Took 3 weeks.
Took 3 weeks.
Actually, we got the results Monday, the Monday before our
our interview.
like 2 days before.
2 days before our interview.
So,
and it's real important, by the way, that when you get your results from the lab, wherever you go, they give it to you in a sealed envelope that they have to write on. It's sealed. You are not allowed to open that. When you arrive at your interview, that's one of the documents that you have to give to the immigration officer that's doing your interview. We handed it to her. Here's our medical. And again, at the end, that was one of the things she had to review. She didn't look at it there in front of us. So we had no idea, or we actually did, because the lab we went to also provided us a copy of the results. Not all labs will do that. We recommend that you actually find a lab, ask them on the phone, hey, do you give a sealed copy and a copy for you as an individual as well? Our attorney recommended that so that we at least would know in advance that everything was good. Luckily for him, all of his vaccines were up to date from Costa Rica, and they matched up what was needed here in the USA. The only thing that we found interesting is they required, and here in the USA, they required him to get a flu vaccine.
Which I did.
Which was fine. So we did go, we went to a drugstore, he got the flu vaccine, and then we went back to that lab and we brought them a copy of the receipt so that they could add that to the record. So yes, you have to get a medical exam as well.
So that's like around $300.
Yeah, another $300 for that, roughly. That takes us to the interview. And for us, we did a lot of research doing exactly what you're doing right now, watching us on YouTube. We watched a lot of other YouTube videos of other people who've gone through the immigration process and gone through the interview and listened to their advice. And in addition, obviously, we had an attorney. So we had 2 meetings with our attorney leading up to the interview. One was a phone interview that we did, and then we had one in-person meeting where he did like a little mock interview with us. And again, just reiterated and went through all of our documents that we had already put together to bring with us to immigration. So why don't you take a moment and share with all of our viewers the documentation that you put together in the different folders and what was included in them.
Question that we were asking to our lawyer, he suggested to have a folder with only documentation that they were going to need, like things that we knew that they are going to ask for. And like this one, for instance, it was only identification stuff, like our birth certificates and the marriage license and the things that we knew in advance they were going to require, including also the letter, the notification.
Yeah.
They gave us a list prior to the interview with the things that we needed to have with us. And then this folder was just easy to show. This is our identification stuff. And the second one, it was a folder that they kept with some extra support, documentation support that they wanted to have, like bank statements. Because it's very important for them to know that, if you're married, you have things that you're sharing, like bills, bank statements, and you have property or something that you're sharing,
Joint accounts, all of that stuff.
Exactly. And so that was that other folder. And then I also had a folder with extra documentation just in case. And in that one I had, these are originals. So you can bring the originals to show to the interviewer, but you also want to take copies of everything, absolutely everything. So if they want to keep it, they can, but they are not going to take your originals. For instance, these are wedding cards, right? The wedding cards from friends. You don't want to give the original wedding card. You want to keep them. So make copies of that, give them to them. They will be happy to see the originals and have the copies for themselves.
Yeah.
So what we have here is that wedding cards, Christmas cards.
Yeah, birthday cards, things like that. Things that were addressed to both of us. That we were a local magazine here in South Florida. A friend of mine is the editor of the magazine, and when we got married, in the social section of the magazine, he put a photo of us in the magazine, a congratulations note. So we made a copy of the magazine, and we brought a copy of that. We had copies of all of our documents and originals of like joint accounts that we had and supporting documents. We even brought along the folder from our marriage, like our planning folder.
Oh, yes.
Just in case. We also brought, like, for example, when Juan Carlos and I, this was on our first year anniversary, this was a book of photos of us in our first 2 years together. And I made this as a gift for him. And so it's a hard copy book, but I brought it just in case. Just another thing to share.
And we also brought these were stickers that we put in our coffee cups.
Yeah, and in the gifts that we gave to all of the guests of our wedding that have happiness as a lifestyle.
And we made little copies of letters from my parents.
Yeah.
and then oh,
Yeah, the document from the
documents
bank.
from the bank.
All of our
Oh.
vacations that we took
All the
together.
vacations that we took together, we also had copies. I have copies of the flights and the proof of the
From the cruises that we went on.
cruises,
So we had the
the
cruise.
hotel,
Yeah.
hotel rooms, stuff
All
like
of
that. And then the financial.
Yeah, and then copies of all of my 1040s and my tax filings. In addition, I supplied the last year of both of our, we have a joint checking account and a joint savings account. So initially, our attorney had said, oh, they'll probably only want a couple months worth of that. So, because we had already submitted with our original, like 2 months worth of bank statements. So I had taken like the last couple months and submitted it. And then she said, oh, do you have any more? It would be nice to see more history. And I said, oh, wow, our attorney said you might not want that. And I was concerned because originally I had printed out all of that and I thought I had left it at home. But thankfully, my husband is very well organized. And in our extra folder, I started looking through it while he was answering some other questions. And sure enough, there I had 12 months worth of our bank statements.
Yeah.
And was able to supply that.
Yeah, and the first folder with the documentation, I had only, I think it was 2 months, the last 2 months.
Yeah.
And then in the extra documentation folder, I had the rest of the year.
Yeah, which was great.
And then we have also
Our Royal Resorts, we have a timeshare together down in Mexico, a points program. So that's like property together. So yeah, we had all of that. And again, we brought copies of all of the affidavits. Even though we had pre-submitted them, we brought them again. And we brought every single form that we had filled out. We brought
That's
copies of all of that, even though it had been previously submitted. Because you never know. They may
ask
They
you.
may not have had it, or they may ask you about it. It's better to have everything and extra. And in addition, in the extra folder, I even brought, for example, when our relationship started, we were long distance for a long time with him in Costa Rica and me here in the United States. So we used WhatsApp, for example, as our communication method. So in major events in our life during that period of time, I took screen captures. I can show you a little. You know, like we were sharing pictures back and forth. Here's one. We were in Costa Rica and we went to the Starbucks coffee plantation with friends of ours. So we had shared photos.
Yeah, and
back
what he
and forth.
did, it was he took copies of the images and a description.
Yeah, and I wrote a note of what exactly it was. And I had all of that. So again, if they wanted additional information, I had like 5 years worth of milestone communications, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, family tragedies, things that happen in people's lives. You know, it was just to show that this is all real.
Then the affidavits, we
Yeah.
had plenty. We had the original and copies in
Our
case.
attorney was like,
Yeah,
I've never seen this many affidavits.
and again, you want to have copies. They already have those, but they might ask,
Right.
can I have the copy of this one? Here, you have
Yeah.
it, because you don't want to give them the originals.
Yeah.
And then this is every single one of the
The forms.
that we filled out, and all the communication that we received from them. Like I saw one here.
Yeah, every time you get an update on your case, you're going to get what's called an I-765 notice. And they're usually either on purple paper or yellow paper.
Yeah. So I have those here. I took copies of that, so we had the copies in case they wanted it,
Right.
or the originals if they just wanted to see. It's better to have more than have less, as proved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And trust me, we had way more than our interviewer could care about. So,
Oh yes.
So why don't we take them through? So as you can see, it's important. Bring everything you can. Bring as much supporting evidence of your relationship. Maybe you don't have as much evidence as we do. We've been a couple for 5 years prior to actually getting married, so we had a lot of history. Maybe your time together is not as long as our time, but that's okay. Bring what you do have. It is important, though, that you have evidence of your relationship. That's the key. Prove that your relationship is real.
A bank account is very important.
Yeah, that's
Bank
real
account is
important.
very, very important. That and bills with both.
Yeah,
with your
both names. That we definitely, we had it.
Something that proves that you live in the same address.
Yeah. Mail with both of our names on the address here. That's important. She did want to know why he didn't have, for example, his Florida ID or his Florida driver's license. And the reason for that is because we're in the middle of a pandemic and all of the Department of Motor Vehicle offices are by appointment only right now, and they have such limited appointments that you cannot get an appointment. We tried for months and months and months here in Florida, and it's impossible.
Yeah,
so we told the interviewer that, and that was the truth. That's the most important thing. Speak the truth.
Always tell the truth.
100%. Be truthful. Just be honest about yourselves. Try not to be nervous, even though we were a little nervous. And it was a little weird with the masks on because she was wearing a mask. We were wearing a mask. There was a petition of her at her desk. So it made it a little more not very personal.
Yeah, and you don't know if that person is comfortable with you, getting closer to show something or present more. It's a little weird because of the situation, so it's not that personal.
Yeah, you didn't want to approach the desk to, like, when she asked for something and you're like, okay.
Yeah, because, you don't know if the other person might be like, oh, stay on your side.
Yeah.
Things like that, and you don't want to upset the other person.
Yeah.
So that's why it was a little weird.
I will say...
You can kind of see their eyes and kind of read what is happening, but it's still a little difficult.
And then as far as the interview goes for us, we'll take you through what we can remember because it's been a while now. But in general, you go in and there's basic introductory questions, that, like we said, the proof of who you are. And I would assume pretty much every person who, from all the videos I've seen, one of the questions that you're going to be asked is to tell about your relationship. How did you meet? And so we were asked that question to talk about ourselves, how we met, where we met, the circumstances, and they may have some follow-up questions, which she did. And we shared that story of how we met. She did ask us one other question about our relationship, which was our proposal. And that was asked directly to, and by the way, she tells you very clearly, I'm gonna let you know whether the question is for Juan Carlos or for you, Gio. Who is the question being directed at? And then in general, some of the questions were open-ended to where we could both answer, but I would say 98% were directed at one or the other. So she asked him to share our proposal story, which he did.
I did.
And then she asked me a follow-up on it, on the proposal, and I chimed in a little bit. I told her, because I always get a little emotional when I talk about, my love for him and the proposal that, it was a very special moment for the two of us. So I actually did get a little emotional in the interview. I don't know if that was good or bad, but I told her, I said, sorry if I start crying. And then there was a lot of business questions. I think there's roughly around 75 or 80 questions on the application of the 485. And those 75 or 80 questions are going to be asked in your interview. Maybe they won't ask all of them, but she went through pretty much all of them.
I think every single one of those questions she asked.
Yep. At one point, she asked me questions about she asked about our financials. Again, as she said, she did ask about filing our tax statement. I explained that we are filing jointly this year. However, it wasn't time to file our taxes yet. We did tell her that we met with our accountant and that we would be filing jointly. And then she asked about what accounts we have. I shared with her. And again, she did ask about having extra documentation of our bank statements. Thankfully, we had it with us, and I was able to give her 12 months worth of our bank statements. We expected a lot more questions, personal questions.
Yeah, she didn't go very detailed into personal questions. It was, again, mostly the question in the form.
Yeah.
And financial, and then a little of the how we met in our proposal, a little of the wedding, and a couple more like
anecdotal personal stories. Yeah.
And that was it. She didn't go into very detailed aspect of our lives. Like we heard some people that supposedly they were asked, what side of the bed do you sleep? What is the first thing that you see in your room when you open your eyes?
Yeah,
what color is the the blanket? She didn't ask any of that.
Yeah, we didn't get asked any of that kind of stuff. Anything that was like directly real personal, or what's his favorite food, or what's your favorite color, or
yeah, none of that. So we are not saying they won't ask those questions, because we don't know. They didn't ask us those questions.
No, it was all very, very business. A lot of financial questions, as we said, and then just those few questions about our relationship, and then again all of those questions off the form. Very little small talk. Again, you try. I would recommend, be polite and be friendly with the person. Our interviewer did interject at some point during the interview that she had traveled to Costa Rica.
And then we chimed in.
We were like, oh, where did you go? What did you do? Did you like it? We had a little bit of small talk, so we felt good about that.
That helps you also calm down a little.
Yeah. So,
and if you're in this office and you see that maybe there's a picture of her or him with friends or a pet or something, maybe you can start a little talk.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to have a little small talk and just to sort of break the ice, a little icebreaker.
It makes things better.
As you know, I'm not afraid to talk. But in this situation, I was very quiet. I didn't speak until spoken to.
Yeah, that's very important. You need to only answer what you're being asked for.
Yeah.
Because at the end it's time, and it's their time, and it's your time. So they are trying to, summarize everything in a time frame, and get to the point.
Yeah.
Get to the point.
And remember, there's other people out there waiting for their interview too, and your interviewer is probably doing multiple interviews. You're not the only one. So be cognizant of their time, and only answer what's asked. So don't volunteer additional information. If they haven't asked it, don't share it. That's the best advice that we could give, plus it was advice that was given to us by our attorney. And again, just go in with a clear mind and a clear conscience, because your relationship is legitimate.
Yeah. I'm not saying don't be nervous, because it's natural.
Yeah.
But after a few minutes, you will
kind of ease into it.
Uh-huh.
So at the very end, our attorney did advise us. At the end, they'll you say your goodbyes, and our interviewer said, "Do you have any other questions for me?" And I did say to the interviewer at the very end, I said, "Well, what can we expect next? What are the next steps?" And sometimes they may tell you right there on the spot, "I have everything I need. Looks like your case is going to be fine. You'll hear from us quickly." In our situation, and by the way, we also supplied her with the folder that we gave her, even though we had already submitted a ton of photographs of our relationship from the time we met all the way to our wedding. I went ahead and submitted additional photographs of post-wedding, all the way what we did during COVID over the last year. We took a couple trips to Disney. We went to Tennessee. We even gave them our card and shared our YouTube channel. We told her about our YouTube channel, and she said, "Oh, I'll watch." So if you're watching, hello. Thank you very much for your time that day. We appreciate it. So anything that's going to help establish your relationship is good. So I did ask at the end, what could we expect, in hopes that she would kind of give us an answer. And her answer was a legitimate answer, and she said they needed to do additional background information on Juan Carlos, and I think they need to do that on every immigrant. They do a further background check, and because I had just given her all those financials, she wanted to spend some time going through them. Perfectly legit. And then she informed us that they have 180 days to make their decision.
120 days.
Oh, sorry, 120 days, yes. 120 days to make the decision. And we said our goodbyes, and then she wanted to make a couple copies of the passports, because we had traveled in January, so she wanted copies of those stamps. And so she brought us back out, had us wait in the lobby while she made copies, brought them back to us. We said thank you and our goodbyes, and then we got in the car and we kind of went,
Yeah, it was strange, because the interview took less than 1 hour.
Right.
It was fast. And because we had different expectations of the kind of question that were going to be asked, then we felt like that was it.
Right.
Is
we
this
were
a
nervous.
good sign or is a bad sign?
Right. And they did ask, for example, they asked me, like they did ask him what my family members, my mother's name, my father's name, they did ask you that. And they asked me if I knew your parents and their names and siblings. So it is important that you know that information.
Yeah, you don't need to know like absolutely everything about them, but list their names.
Yeah.
Something else that she asked that I wasn't sure, I didn't know, was the where he was born, the city. I knew that he was
weird.
born. I knew that he was born in Ohio. I didn't know the city because he just happened to get born
Right, yeah, I
there.
wasn't meant to be born in Ohio. My
Yeah.
family, my dad, at the time, we were living in upstate New York, so I was sort of born there but never lived there.
Exactly. So I know everything else about the place where he actually
Grew up.
I've been there and everything. I visited that place a couple of years ago. But the other city where he was born, I had no idea. Maybe he had mentioned that a couple of times, so I could not remember.
Right. And so she did ask that. I mean, he got the state, and then he said the wrong city name, and then she looked at me, and I corrected it, and then I explained a little bit, that.
So yeah, I mean,
Those were the only two things.
yeah,
that
and you're
sort of,
expected to make mistakes. It's not like a say that.
and I think a lot of it has to do how do you react in that moment? How did I react? How did he react? I'm sure that played into it. Again, obviously not a big deal, because the good news is we were approved. But our interview experience, like we said, we got to the car, and prior to going into the interview, we filmed this video. Wow, it's early in the morning, Juan Carlos.
It's pretty early. Yeah, it's before 8 a.m.
It is. It's 7:36 a.m. As you can see, we're a little dressed up, looking fancy. Why are we fancy today?
Because today is a big day for us. Today is the day that we have the interview for my application for green card.
It is. This has been a long day coming, as all of you know, and watching our channel. We got married at February 16th of 2020. Shortly thereafter, we did the immigration process, and this is the first time we're sharing any of this with all of you. But we wanted to bring a video to you all and share our story of what has the immigration process been like for Juan Carlos and I as a gay married couple. And so we're going to take you through kind of start to finish. But first things first, we're at the end of the road.
Mm-hmm. And today is St. Patrick's Day.
Yes. So not only are we at the end of the road, but we've crossed over the rainbow and we're at the pot of gold. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
It's very fitting, and we were real excited when we got the notice from USCIS that our interview was scheduled on St. Patrick's Day. As you know, we were married in Savannah, Georgia. We wore kilts at our wedding. We both have Irish heritage. Myself more than him, but, he's got a little bit of Irish in there too. So super, super, super excited to be going in just a few minutes, sitting down with an immigration officer and sharing with them our love story and proving why we are truly a legitimate married couple.
We are.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
So no worries. So hang tight. We'll come back and we'll let you know at the end how today went for us. We'll give you some insight as to what our interview process was like. And then we'll go back in time and kind of talk you through the timeline of everything that we went through. Sound good, Juan Carlos?
It does.
It does. Anything else you want to say?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So you can see we were excited and anticipatory going into the interview, and we planned on filming our excitement when we came out, but we weren't excited. We were kind of confused and a little dazed and a little like, just because we expected, I think our expectations were that it was going to be a lot more personal, a lot more conversational, and instead it was a lot more business.
Yeah.
And again, that's not right or wrong, it's just the reality of what it was. Mm-hmm. So, and again, after speaking to our attorney, he felt very confident, and he was like, oh, you'll probably have an answer in 2 weeks. And so then we waited. And again, go back to the waiting period. Patience is a virtue, everyone. So for us, a week went by, 2 weeks went by. On week 3, I started getting a little nervous because we hadn't heard anything. I called the attorney. I'm like, is there anything we can do? And he's like, no, you just got to wait. Things are backed up. Don't worry. Don't stress. 4 weeks went by. We're still waiting. So the best part of the whole process was
getting the notification that my application had been approved.
Yay. So, I was sitting on the couch doing work, and Juan Carlos decided, why don't you tell them?
Yeah, I was sitting on the couch as well, and I decided to look at my phone and see if I had any notifications at the USCIS site. I logged in, I looked, and I saw the I-485 application. It said your case had been approved, and I was like, oh, I have to tell him. And then I went to his side of the couch and said, can you please stop what you're doing? I have to show you something. And like this. I showed to him.
I looked at the phone, I read, I saw approved, and what did I do?
He started crying.
I did. It was just such a huge sense of relief. And it was a combination of happiness and relief. And that's one of the things that surprised me the most. That feeling of relief was not a feeling that I was expecting to get. I felt like whenever this would get approved, I mean, we knew it would get approved because, again, we knew our relationship was legit. I expected to feel a lot more celebratory, and I definitely had more of a sense of relief that no longer did we have to be concerned and the waiting and the worrying and wondering if we're going to get a notice in the mailbox and checking the website and waiting and waiting and waiting. All of that waiting was now over, so that was a huge sense of relief. So, not to say that we're not excited, because holy moly, we're excited. And he has his green card, otherwise known as permanent residence. So we're super thrilled about that. What about you? Did you have that same feeling at the time when we finished?
Yeah, it was a lot of emotions. I was very excited, very happy that it was approved. But I was also relieved because it was over a year of having that, that thought in my head every single day is when is this going to be ready? When are we going to get the notice that is approved? Is everything all right? When are we going to have the interview? How the interview is going to go? Mm-hmm. Is there anything missing in our paperwork? Things are moving or not? What's happening? Are we going to get approved? Are we going to be requested for another interview? Because that can happen as well. Are they going to just deny it for whatever reason? All those thoughts go through your head, and having those thoughts every single day for a year is exhausting.
Yeah.
And so when it was over, I was like, oh my God, it's finally over.
Definitely a big sense of relief. Yes. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely happy. And again, our mantra is happiness is a lifestyle. So now we even have more reason to be happy and celebratory, mm-hmm. which is great. I will make one comment about the entire process, just from my perspective. And again, as a U.S. citizen growing up into this country, being super proud to be an American, and always on the outside looking at immigration through a different set of eyes. Now that I have gone through it with my spouse and have experienced it firsthand, I can say that it was not anything that I expected. I expected it to be a lot easier. I expected it to be, especially in marriage, that, you get married, you fill out a few forms. Yes, you have to prove that you're a couple, but how hard should that be, right? In my mind. Mm-hmm. But I do understand that USCIS and immigration in this country has to do a real good job of vetting everybody that comes into the country, and every marriage has to be vetted and to ensure that it is legal and it is proper. So my advice to all of you, especially you fellow U.S. citizens who are supporting your partner, have patience. Have patience with them, have patience with the process, and understand that the government has to do their due diligence, and it takes time. And if we know one thing to be true about the government, not only here in the USA, but pretty much everywhere in the world, there's a lot of red tape. And all of that is waiting. There's just a lot of processes that you have to go through. And I didn't expect that it was going to take as long as it did. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, we were going through COVID, so I did understand that there were delays. The USCIS offices were closed all over the country. There were limited appointments available. Mm-hmm. So our situation was a little bit different. Things are opening back up now, so your personal journey is going to be different than ours. Remember that everybody's journey is different, but our main takeaways and the main advice is be diligent, be organized, make sure you fill out your paperwork and answer every question, review it multiple times before you submit it. Our advice is that if you can afford it, then an attorney is a good idea. Mm-hmm. It certainly was helpful for us. But is it 100% necessary? No, it's not. You can do it on your own if you don't have the financial means to go that route. And what other advice would you give?
Patience, a lot of patience, because it's a lot of time that you have to just sit and wait.
Yeah. Have we said that, by the way? Have we
Yeah.
talked about waiting? So once the waiting is over, now we're in a situation where we can be relieved. We're keeping all of these documents because although we do have the permanent residence card, our marriage was less than 1 year. So that means it's considered what's called a conditional residence, which means it's only good for 2 years. And at the 22nd month, we are required to apply for a change. We have to also do another process 22 months from now where we will ask for the conditions to be removed. We may have to do another interview at that point. We may not. It just depends on what they ask for. But we'll submit another form at that 22-month mark. Hopefully they'll remove the condition, and then he's granted a 10-year green card. Because we did this marriage-based at the 3-year mark, or just prior to 3 years, he has the right to then apply for citizenship.
Which I will.
He's planning on doing, obviously. And so we're super excited about that. We went out to the store the other day. We picked up this nice little binder, and we are going to, or case, and now we're going to take all of our documents, store them in this, and we're going to hold on to them until 22 months from now when we need to revisit. But yeah, there you go. There's Juan Carlos's journey and my journey through USCIS. And our journey to permanent residency, or your journey to permanent residency.
My journey.
I was just along for the ride. No, just kidding. So hopefully this video has been helpful, right? And if you have any questions, feel free, put them below, and we'll answer if we can. If we can't, we'll let you know. Remember, again, neither one of us are lawyers. We are not giving you this advice based on anything except our personal experience. So that's our disclaimer. This is not legal advice. It's just our personal journey through immigration. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
And please, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel. Obviously, this is a little different than our typical video on our channel, but hopefully you found it.
But it's part of our story,
Yeah.
which is this channel is about.
Exactly. It's about us. So what else do you want to say?
Thank you for watching,
Yeah.
and until the next time.
Yeah. Subscribe. Do that. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Ciao.
Ciao.